All right, so we have done our second solving quadratic equation, and we did it by factoring. There is another method to solve a quadratic equation when you have an x squared and an x. And that method is completing the square. And this is going to look a little bit different than when we completed the square on a function, but really I think it's easier when it's an equation. So I'm going to actually do it on the same problem I did it up here. And you're going to see that we're going to get the same answer. All right, so here's my problem. So for completing the square, the first step is to isolate x squared and x. So we're going to, I'm going to bring the 12x to this side. I'm going to bring the 4 to this side. And again, my goal is to get 9x squared on the right side and the 12x on the right side. And on the left side, we have -4. Next, just like we did last week with the completing the square, this a of 9 causes a big problem when I'm completing the square. So I'm going to solve that by factoring out the a. Now, one of the ways that this is a little bit easier than it was last week, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow, is I can simply divide out that a. So step 2, divide out a. So 9x squared divided by 9 is going to be x squared. -12x divided by 9, I'm going to simplify to be -4/3x. And I know y'all hate fractions, but we've got to learn how to deal with fractions, so we're going to do it. Alright, so I now have an a of 1, which is good. That's what I wanted. And now I can do my identify 2b, b, and b squared. And this is the same process. My 2b is this number right here. Divide both sides by 2, and that's going to give me -4/6. Square both sides. Squaring a fraction is easy. I can just square the numerator. -4 squared is 16. Square the denominator. 6 squared is 36. And now I can simplify. I can divide both by 4, and I'm going to get 4/9. Okay? I want this binomial to be a perfect square, and what it's missing is this b squared. Okay? So I'm going to add b squared to this side, and this is one of those examples where it's easier to complete the square on an equation. I'm just going to keep it balanced by adding b squared on this side. That looks a little different than what we did last week. Like I said, that's because this is an equation. So let's write that down. Step 4, add b squared to both sides. All right. This over here is going to cancel. We're going to have 0. This is going to be 2x squared minus 4/3 x plus 4/9. This is now a perfect square that I can rewrite. If you remember, it's this b that always goes on the inside. And I just noticed that this b can be simplified to be -2/3. I'm going to put -2/3 here. This 0 is still here. It's worth mentioning that this is not always going to become 0. It happened in this case, but there are going to be times that we're going to have a number right here, and we'll look at some more examples of those later. All right, we have finished completing the square. I have a perfect square here. So now I can solve this by following the square root property. Get rid of this square by taking the square root of both sides. Square root of 0 is 0. A square root and a square cancel each other out. They undo each other. They're inverse operations. So all I have now is x minus 2/3. And I can isolate x by adding 2/3 to both sides. So x equals 2/3, which is exactly what we got when we did the factoring method. Both times, 2/3. So let's add this last step. After you add b squared to both sides, rewrite the problem, and then the last step is use algebra to solve for x. All right, we'll talk more about this tomorrow.